So you're looking for some high upside plays. Going into week 10 of the fantasy football season, don't worry. I have 8 high upside players that you can plug and play going into week 10, okay? Chiefs, Rams, Dolphins, Eagles, over 17 players that are going to be on a bye week. So obviously you should be planning accordingly. Of course, that's not even including players that are injured. So let's not waste any more time. Going into my first high upside player going into week 10. I think a lot of people are going to start him. And if not, I think you could potentially be starting him in the flex position or maybe even a mid to low wide receiver 2 going into this week. And that is Tyler Boyd. Tyler Boyd playing the Houston Texans, who honestly have been dueling with teams. We saw what CJ Stroud just did this past week against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now you're going against Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals, who can clearly duel with you as well. This should be a high scoring game. Another big caveat here is that T. Higgins is not going to be in for this week, and that is a huge step up for Tyler Boyd. You hope, the expectation is that he's going to be seeing all those T. Higgins snaps, all those T. Higgins targets, and that's exactly what you want to see going into week 10. Another big caveat here is that Jamar Chase is not 100%. He is questionable going into this week, but I do believe he is going to play, which gives Joe Burrow even more of a reason to probably go to Tyler Boyd, because he knows that, hey, my number one wide receiver is not 100%. If I throw one of those 50-50 balls and he falls down, we're going to have to tread lightly. He might be on a snap count. He might not get all these opportunities that we're hoping and expecting, which makes Joe Burrow have to really pivot to other players like someone like a Tyler Boyd. And we've seen him produce and produce these big fantasy games, or maybe some decent low floor games going into this week, or this year, without T. Higgins and without T. Higgins. Obviously, T. Higgins was struggling with this injury for the past couple of weeks before the bye and after the bye. Didn't play 100% in week 6 against the Seattle Seahawks. Only T. Higgins specifically, guys, he only played 54% in the snaps, but Tyler Boyd played 89% in the snaps, caught 7 out of 7 targets and a touchdown, over 16 fantasy points in week 6, and that was with T. Higgins, not T. Higgins off the field. Keep that in mind. Going into week 8 of the fantasy season, T. Higgins also playing, again, 67% in snaps, seeing 6 out of 5 targets, but Tyler Boyd caught 3 out of 3 in a touchdown. Obviously, that touchdown saved his day, over 13 fantasy points. That is the type of points and expectation that I'm hoping to see, even with the higher ceiling with Tyler Boyd going into week 10 of the fantasy football season. So start him with confidence if you do need a high upside play. My second high upside player going into week 10, staying at the wide receiver position, we're going all the way to Denver, and that is Courtland Sutton with the Denver Broncos. He is playing against the Buffalo Bills on Monday night. So this is a great addition for your team if you do need that extra oomph at the end of the week. And listen, I know it's not a sexy name. I know it's not exciting. But what is really interesting about Courtland Sutton is that he's averaging 12.8 fantasy points per game. He has scored 6 touchdowns out of the 8 games he has played so far. He's coming off his bye week in week 9, and he's one of Russell Wilson's favorite targets coming into this year. And I think you have to understand, Russell Wilson has been putting up points. Obviously, the offense is not perfect, but what's really exciting is that Javonte Williams is back, Courtland Sutton. Obviously, they kept Jerry Jeudy. Things are starting to look a little bit better for this Denver offense, and not saying that I'm going to go all in on Courtland Sutton, just saying, hey, this could be a good flex option for you if you are missing a Devonta Smith, if you are missing an A.J. Brown, if you are missing a Rashee Rice. Courtland Sutton could be a perfect plug and play player here going into week 10. You know what's interesting as well? He is 5th amongst wide receivers in touchdowns so far this season. That is more than Keenan Allen, Amon-Ra St. Brown, CeeDee Lamb, Devontae Adams, Christian Kirk, Jaylen Waddle. The list goes on. It is crazy the amount of touchdowns he is getting, and I'm confident in saying that I'm pretty confident I will say he is 80% chance out of 100 to score a touchdown in this game. Whether it's garbage, whether it's the first play of the game, whatever the case may be, I feel pretty confident in him not scoring a touchdown. The 2 games that he didn't score a touchdown against the New York Jets, which was one of his lowest fantasy outings so far this year, and against the Washington Commanders, which I'm not sure how that happened. That was early in the season in week 2. But keep in mind, once again, still averaging over 12.8 fantasy points per game. His lowest outing Only 2 points against the Jets, who currently give up the least amount of points to the wide receiver position. Now, the Bills are the middle of a pack defense. And once again, I think these guys are going to need to score because the Bills are going to be trying to find their rhythm, specifically coming into this game. So if you do need a high upside play, Courtland Sutton is a perfect plug play. All right, my last wide receiver on this list going into week 10. It's not sexy whatsoever, but hear me out. I am really projecting this. But once again, if you are struggling with bye weeks, if you do have, once again, a Cooper Kupp, a Puka Nacua, a Tyreek Hill, a Devontae Adams, and you need just a flex option, it's crazy to say that Christian Watson could be a great high upside play going into week 10 of the fantasy football season. He is currently playing the Pittsburgh Steelers at Pittsburgh, and they currently give up the 5th most points to the wide receiver position. But the one biggest caveat here, in my personal opinion, is that Aaron Jones is back. Aaron Jones still hasn't seen that 100% workload, and your expectation is that, look, this past week, Aaron Jones got 57% of the snaps. Can he get 65+% of the snaps? That has to keep this defense honest. They're going to have to stack the box a little bit if they get this running game going, which will lead to Christian Watson having that open secondary in the second level for Jordan Love to pass the ball to him. Now, Jordan Love has been a little bit off, but if he can just connect with 1 or 2 with Christian Watson coming into this game, that can lead to a great high upside play and even an end zone for a touchdown for Christian Watson. Once again, hasn't been amazing, but the opportunity is going to be there. Once again, the Steelers give the 5th most amount of points to the wide receiver position. Do they keep Aaron Jones? Do they keep this Pittsburgh Steelers defense honest with Aaron Jones, or do they go deep with Christian Watson coming into this week? So if you need a good flex option, it's crazy to say that Christian Watson could be a high upside player. Okay, let's go to the running back position here, a teammate of somebody earlier, and that is Javonte Williams. Yes, Javonte Williams, a high upside player coming into this week, and maybe you guys already know this, but if not, and you are struggling at the running back position, Javonte Williams could see this opportunity. One of the biggest things all offseason coming into this season, Zach and I were saying, look, Javonte Williams is probably not going to get his stride back into the second half of the season. He probably won't get specifically that workload into the bye week. Well, won't you know, he just had his bye week in week 9. Won't you know, right before his bye week versus the Kansas City Chiefs, he has one of his highest snap percentages and one of his highest touches. 63% snap share against the Kansas City Chiefs. Over there in London, or it's not London, in Germany, versus the Kansas City Chiefs, he had 27 tokes on the ground, 85 yards. He had a total of 30 touches in that game. That is his highest snap percentages and touches so far this year. Now he's playing the Buffalo Bills, who arguably have a worse defense when it comes down to the run. Not saying they are a bad defense. They do have a middle of a pack defense according to the season so far against points allowed amongst running backs. But Javonte Williams finding his stride. Once again, like I said earlier, with Courtland Sutton, this offense is finding his stride with Courtland, with Russell, and now with Javonte Williams here. And you can easily hope and expect that. I'm not expecting 30+ touches. I'm expecting more 15+ with the opportunity to get the ball in the air as well here for Javonte Williams. So if you do need a good mid to low RB2, Javonte Williams could bring you the high upside RB1 coming into this week. Staying at the running back position, going to the Pittsburgh Steelers. And what's crazy is that I'm bringing 2 players for you, and that is Naji Harris and Jaylen Warren. If you're struggling, once again, at the running back position because of injuries, because of bye weeks, Naji Harris and Jaylen Warren have been finding their stride in this offense. And one of the things I've been saying all in our live stream so far is that Deontay Johnson makes this offense better. They have to keep these defenses, honest when it comes to Deontay Johnson. They're going to pepper you with targets for Deontay Johnson. But then once they do that one run play, boom, either Naji Harris or Jaylen Warren can take off. And that's exactly what you saw. Some of their best opportunities that we saw against the Tennessee Titans this past week on Thursday night. Look, it's not exciting, but if you want a good 12 points from either of these guys, Naji Harris and Jaylen Warren, that could happen. If you have the opportunity to start Naji Harris specifically, that's exactly where I'll be leaning. I mean, look, the last 3 games against the Rams, 14 points. Against the Jacksonville Jaguars in week 8, 10 points. Against the Tennessee Titans, 15 points, and he scores a touchdown. He has scored a touchdown in 2 of the last 3 games after his bye week. And Jaylen Warren has scored 1 touchdown out of the last 3 games, but still getting those opportunities. 10 fantasy points in week 7. Week 8 against Jacksonville, it was 7 points, but he did get those opportunities more in the air over Naji Harris. And then the Tennessee Titans, over 14 fantasy points in that game. Now, the Green Bay Packers do give the 11th most points to the running back position, which makes this opportunity very intriguing for these guys, right? So if you need some high upside play, Jaylen Warren and Naji Harris are some good low-end RB2s that you can plug and play going into week 10 of the fantasy football season. For my quarterback needy fantasy players out there, whether you're a super flex or in a one quarterback and you need a high upside play, you need to go and get that dub right now. Maybe you have your quarterback that's going against a tough defense, maybe someone like a Trevor Lawrence, or maybe someone like a Deshaun Watson, whatever the case may be, against the Baltimore Ravens. Gino Smith can be a perfect opportunity for you as he is playing the Washington Commanders going into week 10. The Washington Commanders against the quarterback position currently give the 2nd most points to the quarterback position, but not only that, they also give the 3rd most points to the wide receiver position. And arguably the the Seattle Seahawks have a great offense. They have Kenneth Walker, DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, Jackson Smith, and Jigba. And we've seen these guys. Obviously, they just had a bad week against the Baltimore Ravens. They couldn't get anything going. I completely agree. But now they're going at home. The 12th man here. They're going to be getting into a rhythm early and often, and that's as and I do believe they're going to be throwing a lot more in this game because a lot of people are concerned about Kenneth Walker at the moment. Is he going to be 100%? Is he even 100% right now? He is going to play. I'm not saying you shouldn't play him. I'm just saying they might want to throw the ball a little bit more coming into this game, specifically against the Washington Commanders, because they are struggling at the secondary. They willingly, gave up their players, essentially Montez Sweat and Chase Young here in the front 4. So their defense arguably gets a little bit worse. They're going to be able to move the ball down the field. Once again, DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, Jackson Smith, and Jigba. Geno Smith is going to feast coming into this week. And I know, once again, if you are struggling at the quarterback position, maybe you had a Jalen Hurts on a bye week, a Patch Mahomes on a bye week, a Tua Tags on a bye week, and you need a quarterback, maybe in a one quarterback league, and somehow Geno Smith's available. I'm picking him up, playing, hoping for the high upside going into week 10. Okay, let's go and finish off with 2 tight ends. My first tight end here is Trey McBride. Yes, Kyler Murray is back. A lot of people are excited about Kyler Murray. A lot of people are going and believing in Kyler Murray, as well as I. You should be starting him and playing him if you do have him, depending on your leagues and your other options for Kyler Murray specifically. But one of the things I think about is okay, Kyler Murray is going to be peppering Hollywood Brown. I completely get it. I understand, but we can, tend to forget, and I think we're getting a little bit skewed here, is that AJ Terrell is going to be on Hollywood Brown. Not saying that he can't divvy up AJ Terrell. We've seen AJ Terrell struggle this year without a doubt. He's going to be on Hollywood Brown, but somebody that's going to be open in the middle of the field, in my personal opinion, that could be an easy safety blanket just to get Kyler Murray going. Trey McBride. When we saw what he did in week 8 against the Baltimore Ravens against a really good defense. 10 out of 14 targets, had his highest snap percentage with 82 snap percentages, also had nearly 100 yards and a touchdown, over 25 fantasy points that week against the Baltimore Ravens. 100% his quarterback gets better in Kyler Murray. Now, I do believe Kyler Murray is going to be a little bit rusty coming in. It's not going to happen right away in the first quarter. I do believe it's going to take time, and you're going to see Trey McBride and Kyler Murray immediately get that rhythm together in the second half here of this game specifically, because once again, AJ Terrell against Hollywood Brown, not saying that you shouldn't start Hollywood, just saying, hey, that might be a tougher matchup than we think. With Trey McBride bringing that safety blanket in the middle of the field for Kyler Murray, I don't think he's going to be utilizing his legs right now early and often, because he's still trusting, going through that mental hurdle with that ACL. So keep that in mind. Currently tied in 20 on the year with really only that one game going off. So we can easily see Trey McBride being a top 15, top 12 tight end if Kyler Murray starts to target him. So keep in mind, Trey McBride, a high upside player going into week 10 of the fantasy football season. And last but not least here, another tight end on the list here, and that is Dolton Schultz. Yes, Dolton Schultz playing the Cincinnati Bengals, just like I was talking earlier with Tyler Boyd. These teams can duel. Joe Burrow can score, and so can C.J. Stroud. And C.J. Stroud, one of his favorite targets here is Dolton Schultz. And we saw that this past week against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Caught 10 out of 11 targets, over 100 yards and a touchdown, over 27 fantasy points in week 9. Now you're going against the Cincinnati Bengals, who currently give up the second most amount of points to the tight end position. Not only that, Nico Collins is officially been ruled out for this game. So it's going to be Tank Dell and Dolton Schultz that are going to be his main targets coming into this week. And we have been seeing the opportunity with Dolton Schultz before without, players. Obviously, this one was without Tank Dell in week 5 against the Atlanta Falcons. Tank Dell did miss some time. He did leave that game, if I'm not mistaken, with a concussion. But, week 5, he caught 7 out of 10 targets, over 19 fantasy points and a touchdown. He has scored a touchdown in the last 4 out of the 5 games he has played. They did have a bye in between that in week 7. So weeks 4 to 9, the last 4 out of the 5 games, he has scored a touchdown. So keep that in mind. You could easily say that he could score a touchdown here because they're either going to be playing down or they'll be going back and forth in this shootout against the Cincinnati Bengals. So look, Dolton Schultz, a perfect opportunity to start against the Bengals, who currently give up the second most amount of points to the tight end position. Dolton Schultz, Trey McBride, Gino Smith, Naji Harris, Javonte Williams, Christian Watson, Courtland Sutton, and Tyler Boyd are our 8 high upside players going into week 10 of the fantasy football season. I hope this is helpful. I hope you have all the fantasy gods on your side going into week 10. Surely, I do know I need to get a dubs in some of my big home money leagues because I have been struggling with injuries all throughout this year. And as always, it's all love.
Now that those idiots are done talking, who needs some rankings?
Hell yeah, I need some rankings.
Then use promo code LAND, L-A-N-D, for 30% off any membership at flockfantasy.com.
Oh.
It's so easy, even your grandma could scan that QR code right there.